Ahoy there, and welcome to the She Sails Solo podcast. My name is Regan, and I'll be your host and captain for this journey. Here, I'll skipper you through tales of my adventures as I navigate life as a female sailor, as well as share stories and advice from other women on the water. So, let's cast off the lines and set sail as we voyage towards a better sea for every she. Hello and welcome to today's episode of the She Sails Solo podcast. Today we're talking with Hannah Goldberg. Hannah fell into the spotlight when a video of her sailing journey went viral on TikTok. Since then, she has continued sharing her journey crewing on sailboats all over the world through her short-form video content on TikTok and Instagram. In today's episode, we will discuss finding and maintaining relationships when you're constantly traveling, her dream of owning a boat, finding safe crewing positions, and much more. I hope you enjoy. All right, so thank you for joining us for the podcast today. To start out, I would just like you to give yourself a little introduction and start telling us about how you got into sailing and what led you there.
Okay, hi. I'm Hannah Goldberg. I'm a sailor from California. And I've always had like an extreme passion for sailing and traveling, and being by the sea, living on the sea and stuff. So, I was always kind of trying to pursue that, but 2 years ago, I just quit my job and full-time just committed to starting my journey, sailing around the world.
What was a point in time during that you were like, okay, this is like, I can't push it off any longer. This is what I have to do.
Yeah. So I like sort of got into this long-term relationship. And when I first entered that relationship, I was like fully, transparent about my goals of buying a boat and sailing around the world. And he seemed like really into that. I fell like super deeply in love. And so I just got like wrapped up in this relationship. And I was starting to get really settled. And we ended up like getting an apartment. I had like a full-time desk job. We had a dog, and it was just like this whole life. And then I found myself in 2020, Christmas 2020, I asked for like a vacuum, and my mom was like, "What? Like, why do you want? This is not you." So I don't know. But that was like, I was starting to get too settled, and then I kind of realized I need to like, when that relationship ended, it kind of like blew up my life a little bit, and I kind of just looked at my life and what I really wanted, and that's when I really decided to like go for it.
How much of a healing time, just out of curiosity, did you give yourself like in between being like, okay, this is something that I want with someone else and have, because that's something that I had to go through as well. Because when I first started thinking about sailing, I was in a very serious relationship and we had talked about doing it together. So I know for me, at least, there was a period of time where going from that mindset of like, oh, we'll do it together, to this is something that I'm going to have to pursue on my own, and making sure I was in like the right headspace to do that. Was that something that you had to like deal with as well, or?
Well, I was always like really prepared and ready to do it on my own. It was actually an adjustment to try and bring like him into it. I didn't want to feel like I was forcing anyone into this like lifestyle that I wanted and dreamed of. So it was important for me to like, if it was going to bring someone into it, that it wouldn't add, more burden or hard. Like I wanted to, so I never really expected to do it with someone else. I just like didn't expect to, fall in love with this person. But it was like a transition from going from being, in that relationship to like being independent again, and trying to do it on my own, which I didn't. Yeah, I honestly felt a little bit more at ease doing it alone, because I'm pretty independent sometimes. I do want like, I like to be with other people as well. Like I always want to share the journey with others, but if it's not right, you can't force it, really.
Yeah. And that is something I feel like that is important when you are sailing, to have that like comfort with being alone. Because even when you are sailing with other people, it is important to like separate, and people get very introverted and a little weird sometimes. So when you started getting into boats, you started with crewing positions. How did you get into that to start with?
So I basically just like became friends with sailors in so many different ways. Like social media is a big one. And I just was also asking like family friends and people who knew sailors in Los Angeles area, like the West Coast, and from mutual friends I met like some people like this basically like a friend of my family's. He had a boat, and he was needing to bring it from Santa Barbara down to Marina del Rey in Los Angeles, and I was like, I would love to help, because I'm really interested in like learning how to sail. And so in exchange for like teaching me how to sail, then I helped bring the boat to Marina del Rey. And that was like my first real experience, like with an offshore passage and like being crew. Even though I didn't really have, any actual experience. I had done sailing camp and stuff in the Netherlands, and that's where my grandparents had like a little sailing boat. So I had some experience, growing up and stuff, but it had been a long time, and I hadn't really, like, my grandparents' boat was like 20 feet. So or smaller, and it was not anything that you would take it in like little lakes. It was not ocean sailing. So the first boat was 37 foot. And then I just like went on Cruise Seekers, and I went on Instagram and social media and all these different, Facebook and all these different ways that you can find crew positions. And I just like looked for the best opportunities that were, like either paid a little bit, not paid, shared contribution, or just like they're paying for your expenses, and just like different ways to just like keep gaining experience, because I figured I'd rather like gain that experience and find out where I like to sail, what it's like in other places before I get a boat myself. But yeah, now it's been 2 years, and it's just been constant like crew positions and people asking me to join their boats. So it's
I'm sure it's fun, but I bet like scheduling that and like planning all of it out can also be a little overwhelming at times.
Yeah, sometimes, for sure.
So so you said you learned how to sail through a friend.
Yeah, and also sailing camp when I was like 8.
Yeah, so like you
And
never did any of the like ASA classes or anything like that. I know that was like one of the questions that one of like the listeners sent in was, did she like, which classes did she take when she learned how to sail? Which I've done.
No, I've done things very like, what is the word? Yeah, I've done things, just gone with it. I haven't needed any of those certifications yet, even though it's a goal to get it for sure. But for the positions and the crew that I have joined in the past, like I just haven't needed it. Yeah. But I've done it, like I've read all the books, but it's just not official.
No, I feel like doing the ASA classes is mainly important for like if you're trying to charter your own boat, that's what people look for. But if you're just, crewing, or like you don't have to have any certification. I know at least in the US to own and operate a sailboat. I mean, I think you might driver's license or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, which can be a nice thing because there's like not really that much of a barrier to entry, but also there are a lot of people that get out and just have absolutely no idea what's going on, which can lead to issues.
I say do the crew positions, basically like get the experience, make sure you like it. And then once you gain experience, like those are still resume builders. I still have all of that stuff, like all of my crossings, all my passages on my resume with like captains and crew and all this stuff. But then if I really wanted to, get a job if I get certified then, and I really want to get a job in the like doing a delivery or on a charter or whatever, and then I get certified, then I already have that experience. Whereas like if you just get certified and you spend all that money and you don't even know if you like it or if it's something that you want to do, and then you're going to try and apply for jobs, you're not really going to find like really anything that's going to pay you back for getting those certifications right away. Like, I think that if I got certified at this point, then it would be, I have all like contacts and like, I've been, in the industry for a little bit longer, like you get to know people. And I think that that's what I've found is the best way to find any crew job is networking and like just, networking and getting to know people. Like when I was in college and everyone was always talking about networking and it's so important, I was always like, fuck that, because I don't want to, I'm like a bit of an introvert sometimes, and it just like freaked me out. But then now I've realized, oh, it's like the most important thing, and it's not so scary actually, because people are actually so nice, and if people like you and they're genuine, then you'll connect, and if not, then there's way more people, 8 billion people in the world. So
overall, like the sailing community is really good about that anyways, because I feel like, kind of like we were talking about before, you kind of have to be introverted, but also it is very community oriented because we're all going through the same thing. So it's a very like open and easy thing to be able to just strike up a conversation with someone because you already know that you have those passions and similarities. You said you do find crew positions through networking. I know you had shared on social media that you have had good and bad experiences with positions before. If you could talk a little bit more about that and like advice you would give to make sure that you choose a position where you feel like safe and comfortable.
So when I went across the Atlantic, it was a boat delivery for the boat owner. There's 2 boat owners, and Carlton is the owner of the boat, and he was friends of friend, and he is a legend. He was there with us. He sailed across the Atlantic from England and wanted to bring the boat back to England, and he was alone, and so he hired crew, and then he hired a professional skipper. But so the thing is with Carlton, like I knew him through through mutual friends, and I really I had spoken with him for months. I really trusted him. We became like even closer, obviously, during the crossing. He's just a really genuinely great person, and he unfortunately just hired someone who lied on their CV, and a captain, the skipper. He hired a skipper who ended up being like crazy alcoholic with just no real, like, it just didn't seem like he even had any sailing experience. Like he didn't know what he was doing. It was shocking, and we all kind of figured it out right as we were leaving, and it was kind of like, I don't know, we didn't really figure it out until we were like 2 days offshore. At that point, I don't know, it wasn't so crazy yet. And so then the first time he got like super drunk was in the middle of the Atlantic. But yeah, it was a surprise to all of us, because especially when we got to the Azores, turned out that he lied also about having a visa. We don't know all the things he lied about, but they kicked him out of the country. We finished the delivery without him. So yeah, that was a pretty shitty experience. And it happens so much more than you would think. And even getting to the Azores, we met 2 other boats who had just done the crossing, who also accidentally hired an alcoholic skipper who just like had no idea what they were doing. And it's really important to like check references. I think that this is like one of the biggest things. One thing I always do before getting on a boat is I like FaceTime with the people. I talk with them like on the phone extensively. I talk to other people they've worked with before. Like any job, like it's kind of like getting a bad boss, but it's a little bit worse because you're living with them and you're in the middle of the sea. So
yeah, especially if you're doing like a large crossing like that, it's not like you can really just like take them off.
Yeah, I kind of trusted a little bit. I just trusted that he chose a good person. I looked at the CV as well. I thought, oh, looks good. He was like an engineer and he had done different passages and crossings. And it was just like, okay, like why would you think that, it just kind of made me realize that, yeah, we do have to be really careful and just know exactly who you're getting on a boat with, especially as like young women. Yeah.
So you have been crewing for a really long time at this point. You said about 2 years you've been doing that. So where are you wanting to go in the future? Like, what are your future upcoming plans?
So I have a big crossing coming up in March with a crew that I'm extremely excited to be a part of. My ultimate goal is to buy my own boat, whether that's in Europe or in the States. I have a Dutch passport, so I'll either buy a good deal of a boat over there, and then cross the Atlantic with some crew, or I'll buy it in the States already. It just where it depends on where I find like my dream boat. And also I have to, get the funds and find ways to support myself. But yeah, that's my ultimate goal and dream. Yeah.
Ownership is
I want to talk about the next passage, but I haven't announced it yet, and I don't want to like jinx anything with but it'll be coming like maybe probably by the time this comes out, it'll have been announced where I'm going next, but it's super freaking exciting. I think I might have told you. I don't know.
You told me, and I'm like super excited for you. Really, really fun. Really exciting. So what would you be looking for in a boat when you get your own vessel?
Good question. I'm looking for something that I would be capable of sailing by myself, but also that has the capacity to bring crew members, at least two. I would love to share the experience with other people, especially other women, because as a female sailor, it's been hard. I've had hard experiences with male captains, and I want to make sure that there's like, opportunities for women to sail and get into sailing with like, and feel safe. So that's, so I'm looking for something that's manageable in size, probably like around 35 feet, max 40 feet. I want a monohull. I know you're on a beautiful old warm cat, which I love those boats. But but it's a lot of boat.
Oh, for sure.
For me, I'm like, I do also want like an old fashioned, something classic, and something that's really seaworthy. So those are like my main things. And I love like a teak deck and, the specifics, but a classic.
No, I know something for me that was really huge is I was like, it has to have a personality. Because like especially exactly the newer boats that come out that are super nice, like a lot of them are just very like clean, very standard, and they don't have that like cool like character and woodworking and
like the nautical kind of like feel. Just I love that. I don't know, it's just part of sailing. And I like, if I was going to get a home, if I was going to buy a home for myself, it would never be like a big white modern house with like glass windows structured. Like that's just not my style. So I kind of like, even though it's not about that, I also just like the fact, because I also sailed on this boat Elixir for like 9 months with some friends, and it was like this boat that had so much history and it has been through so much, and I kind of love that, having a boat that has a story as well. So.
Yeah. What has it been like to document all of your travels as you're doing them? Because, like everyone knows you from TikTok for the most, at least to start, that like really, I feel like, I mean, it's the first time I saw you kicked off, got like millions of views, went totally viral. But like you've continued sharing your journey as you've gone through these different crew positions, showing what life is like on a boat. How have you found that? Just like managing that with all the tasks that have to be done while aboard.
Really love being able to share my story because, well, it's just kind of like raw. It's just like me. I'm just kind of doing it because I like it. And I think that one thing has been like balancing it. I have not shared as much as like other people I see on TikTok who are sharing every day and sharing a lot. And there's definitely a lot of pieces missing. And I definitely like want people to know me more and get to know me, because people come to assumptions and stuff online, which is fine. Like I'm putting my life out there. And I do overwhelmingly like love the community that I've been able to build and the people that I've gotten to meet and gotten to know. So I think that's like the best thing about it, is that all these connections and all these experiences, it would not at all exist if it wasn't for me sharing my story online. And so, it's like, I think it's a great thing, especially with my goal with it from the start was, when I joined TikTok was during quarantine, like during the COVID quarantine. And before that, I'd never really posted on social media. I was like I very much was actually like against it. I didn't really like it at all. And then I ended up getting a job as as a marketing assistant, and it went into social media manager because I started building their social media. And I didn't like social media because I didn't like the things I was consuming. Like, I didn't like seeing these like ultra curated feeds and people like with perfect bodies that made me like feel like shit about myself, and I'll never look like that, or I'll never be able to do that. Like luxury travel, all these things on Instagram, it was just like not connecting with me. But then I went on TikTok, and it was people who are like super genuine, telling their real stories, like no filters, no like curating and like ultra, crazy things that are just like overwhelming. And I felt like that was what was missing a lot from social media, was just like realness. But I think that YouTube, a lot of people on YouTube do that really well, but I just didn't have time at that point to like sit down and edit, a 20-minute YouTube video and tell the story that way. Also, I still am not very comfortable talking to the camera, so TikTok was just a perfect way for me to do it. I just was stitched together clips that were ready in my phone. I didn't even expect to make a TikTok. I just had clips on my phone. I did a voiceover. I typed it up, and yeah, it went viral. So I just continued from there,
No, and it's been like so interesting to follow your journey. And I know a lot of, people other than me also feel like that. So it's going to be very exciting to see like all of the things that you have in store for you, because I know some of the stuff that's coming up and it's really exciting, but then even on top of that, like getting into ownership is a wild ride. It's very fun.
Thank you.
What would you say, like through all of your adventures on a boat, what would you say some of like your highlights were, as well as like, some struggles that you face, like some of the hardest things?
So I think like a highlight for me was there have been like there's some highlights have been just I've completely grown as a person. I've changed, there's a lot of things that have changed, and ways that I've gone about being grateful for life and spirituality. I'm really grateful for like my connection to the natural world and like the environment, the ways that those things have changed. And sailing to Colombia was a huge highlight for me. It was my first time in South America. I was with some of the best friends I've ever had in my life. People who I loved, in a place that was magical. I learned Spanish. I really feel like it was the first time that I experienced like a whole new culture, and it was the most welcoming, beautiful culture I've ever experienced. Still, I loved Colombia. And then the beauty of the nature there. It's like the whole world in one country. It's just has everything. And some lows. I was trying to like say some things that maybe I haven't said before, but I think, some low points I've had have that I was just like thinking about it last night a little bit, actually. And I think like when you're traveling, it's really hard to you form really deep bonds and connections with people really quickly, but then you have to leave and you have to say bye. And it's like really hard. And it's been also really hard for me, to know what I want, because I love being independent and I love my lifestyle and I love doing things on my own. But then also, I think about having a partner one day, and finding love while traveling is definitely something that's like, it's just been, in the back of my mind. I don't open myself up. I have like since my breakup, I like put these walls up, and I don't let people in, and I don't feel like I can connect and like romantically. But when it comes to friendship relationships, I've gained some that are like the strongest I've ever had in my life. Mm-hmm. I literally. But then when it comes to like romance, it's like that part is gone. Whereas before this whole journey, I was like in a long-term relationship from 17 till 22, and then single for like a year, and then again in a long-term relationship for a year and a half with my ex. So I was always in relationships. And I think like getting my independence, but just like not being, my mindset's just, it's funny how it's changed. So yeah, I think that's like been some of the lows, is just like, it's like high and low, you get these really, really deep, strong connections, but then you have to say bye. And then you kind of like close yourself off to getting deep with someone in a romantic way, maybe.
Do you
But
think that
yeah.
that like because this was a question that one of the listeners sent in, what do you think that like constant leaving and traveling has also affected how your relationship has been with your family and like people?
Um, well, on it, like it actually has like affected it. I mean, yeah, I used to live at home, but I think that it's my family's really supportive and they're really proud of like the journey that I've been on and like taken, and which is really amazing. So I've talked to them a lot on the phone. I can call them anytime I want. I can FaceTime them anytime I want. I'm still really close with them. So I wouldn't say it's really changed. Honestly, it's probably gotten better in a lot of ways because I'm just living my true like authentic self and like passions and goals, and they're just fully supportive of that, which is like makes me really happy to be part of the family that I'm part of.
It's definitely changes the dynamic a little bit, but I think it's for the best if you're doing something that you're truly aligned with to be
Yeah,
able,
people, yeah,
yeah, when you
people
feel
move away,
good,
like,
yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
not usually from my like small hometown in like middle Georgia, but like in most of the world, like people come and go a little bit more. So what are your biggest tips for making friends? I know you said like networking, and we have talked about how it kind of comes easily. But that have there ever been any points where you're like at anchor and there's people over there and I want to talk to them, but do they want to talk, like
Yeah.
you found any
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. No, I like try and get past that barrier. I just like smile at people, and then I like will wave, and then I'll go say hi. And like if I get the vibe that they don't want to talk or that it's like a weird conversation, I'll be like, okay, well, have a good day. And then, you leave. But then if it's like really good and your conversation is going really well, then you end up like, oh, well, let's get a coffee. And then all of a sudden, like I've made my favorite, like, well, I can't even say I have a favorite. Like I've made so many friends with other sailors at anchorages and marinas. And I remember the first day that we arrived in Colombia, we met, like we saw this boat that we had recognized from Curacao, and we saw the couple that owned it, and we like recognized them, and we're like, oh hey, you just came from Curacao, didn't you? And then we talked about the sail, and then we became best friends. And now and they're in the Bahamas, and like every time that they see crew positions in the Bahamas, they're like sending it to me, or like friends that they're like, come to the Bahamas, so it's really it's I think the best way to make friends is, yeah, just smile at people, be open, be friendly. And like when you are traveling, if you're not sailing, just go stay at hostels. That's like the best way to make friends. Join like free walking tours, tour guides, tour groups. If you hear someone talking, like, if you're alone, you overhear a conversation and someone's like, oh yeah, we're from this place, or be like, oh cool, are you from there? I'm from this, I have a friend from there. And then you kind of find common grounds, and yeah, it kind of happens naturally. But
I guess the flip side to that would be like dealing with, which was another question, is dealing with loneliness. Like, how do you cope with times where you do feel a little bit more like isolated and lonely?
that's also a good question. I think that when it comes to loneliness, like there's I've in the past I've turned to things like smoking weed and like drinking, and that is so bad. We kind of have these like ways of like self-soothing, and I used to like want to smoke weed and just like find this escape, but I quit smoking and drinking because I wanted to be clear-headed. And I like will on occasion will have like a drink, but I'll never just like do that alone. I just think it's not really something that I like to do. And so ways that I've overcome that and like trying to grow from it is when I feel lonely, I'll journal. Like that is something I love to do. I'll work on my art. I'll work on videos, and I'll FaceTime friends or message friends. And you're never really alone, because there's so many, if you make connections with people, they'll always, and they're meaningful connections, those people will always be there for you. So that is one thing. But yeah, I think also I really value my alone time. So it's both.
So I know you said that you have a very supportive family and you have people to reach out to. Did you ever have any like pushback for wanting to do this as a lifestyle at all? Or was everyone pretty much like super supportive and accepting?
My dad's always like pretty nervous. He's just like, what's wrong with you? Why do you want to do this? He just gets nervous about it because he's a protective father. But he's never pushed back. He's never been like, don't do it. Except when I first was going to sail to Colombia, he was so scared. He was like, you're not supposed to go to Colombia. So I had to like present him with, the research and the facts that it is safe to travel to Colombia, which, a lot of Americans have this idea because of the media, but
Yeah.
that is not the case. So yeah. No, yeah, I never really experienced pushback. No, I'm lucky. I'm very lucky.
Has there been anywhere that you've sailed where you did feel unsafe?
I mean, I guess like with when I was sailing and we were sailing from Grenada to Curacao and passing by Colombia, we got boarded by, an open boat. A lot of people lately, I reposted the video on Instagram. It happened over a year ago, but posted on Instagram because I never had. It just got like over 1 million views and people are like, how could you be so stupid to do that? And you got robbed. But like, it really, to me, I'm like, it could have been the Coast Guard. These people, it was really scary and for a little bit. But the thing is, like, I didn't feel like after a little bit with them, I didn't feel like they were going to kill me or they were going to like kidnap me. It just wasn't that vibe. And that's not what happened. Like, they could have been Coast Guard. They could have not been Coast Guard. Either way, they didn't rob us. They took alcohol that we offered to them. And they inspected the safety equipment and all the stuff on the boat. So, but yeah, that was scary. I think I didn't feel seeing a motorboat, like a tiny motorboat speeding towards us in the, when we're in Venezuelan waters. Yeah, I was scared because of what I'd heard, what I known. I didn't, necessarily want to sail in that area or like have any intentions or, also it was near Los Roques, which is very highly frequently traveled to, and it is a safe place to go. So, I wouldn't recommend others to do what we did. But also at the same time, like, I think that people should travel to Los Roques and that people should be open to, you just have to do your research. But yeah, that's the one time I think I would say that I felt, kind of a little unsafe.
What would be your advice for people that are just wanting to like start getting into sailing?
Yeah. So I think that when I get messages about people who really want to start sailing, like their biggest questions are, how do you feel safe? And the thing is, you'll never, like, nothing is really so safe in this world. Like, driving down the freeway is not safe. It's not safe to really to cook in the kitchen. Like, anything could blow up. Like, there's so many things that happen in this world, on land, not on land. People are so afraid of the water and the sea because it's unknown and it's huge and it feels very remote. So I would say, like, do some sailing where you're close to land. Like, you don't have to go immediately into the middle of the ocean. You're really not so remote as you would think. And just when you have all these fears, think about them, think about why they're a fear, but don't let it control your life and your decisions, like, be able to overcome those fears and really put yourself out there. One thing that I did is I didn't really ask, anyone for help. Like, I just started messaging everyone I knew, teaching myself how to sail, putting myself out there in every way possible. And so just find the opportunities, message people, learn on YouTube, find different books at the library, and make your own workbooks, any kind of ways that you could teach yourself to sail, because people think sailing's so hard, but it's actually not so hard. You can really learn how to sail quickly. A lot of people who have been sailing for years are still learning. You know the basics, and then you grow that skill set. So just start with what you have, which is everyone has internet access. You can get a library card, and then I just start there. That's my advice, I'd say.
Well, that is very solid advice, and very easy, attainable way to start. Thank you for coming on and like sharing your story and talking with us and giving us some insight. I appreciate you doing this.
Sure.
Yeah, and I hopefully will be able to do this again, maybe down the road when you have a few more.
Yeah, definitely. I can't wait to see where you go. I'm excited to see your adventure.
I'm excited to go as well. So.
I love following it, because like, there's some things online, like I was like noticing, some people online and some stories that you just like connect to, and yours I just really liked and I really connected. And even though you don't post a lot all the time, I still feel like I know you and I know your story, and I want to like follow it and see you like succeed, because I really love what you're doing and I'm proud of you. So really good job.
I definitely greatly appreciate that. It means a lot. So thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you're interested in following Hannah's journey a little bit more, check out her Instagram or TikTok at Hannah Sailing. If you're interested in following along with what's happening with my boat project, as well as the podcast, visit my Instagram, She Sails Solo. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next week.